Hi, and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and today I have a treat for you. Today on Literary Hype Podcast is a New York Times bestselling author of so many books that is so beloved in the YA community, and that author is Marissa Meyer. Today we're talking about her brand new book, House Saphir, as well as her upcoming book, The Escape Game. These are very different books, and so they come with a bit of a different writing process for each one, especially since Escape Game has a co-author. So we're talking about the writing process, we're talking about French mythology, which I did not know anything about going into this book, which is super fun. But there's so much to talk about with Marissa Meyer. She's got such a breadth of knowledge in the industry to talk about. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Marissa Meyer. Welcome to Literary Hype. It's very exciting to have you on. You have so many things we get to talk about today.
Yes, so many things. Thank you.
So let's start with your most recent release as of today, The House Saphir.
Saphir, yes.
We have had a lot of debates in my bookstore about how to pronounce it.
I mean, full disclosure, I don't speak French, and it's the French word for sapphire, so I'm kind of making a guess.
Yeah, it's a lot of sapphires, you know. So I saw you say Saphir, and I was
I did look it up at one point and watched one of those YouTube videos, like how to pronounce this word. But I'm always a little sus about those. Like, how do I know that you're a native French speaker, you know? So I don't know. But I say House Saphir. There is a lot of French in this book, and French characters. So talk a little bit about deciding on using French folklore for this story. Yeah. So the story is inspired by the fairy tale Bluebeard, which has different variants from around Europe, but the most famous and popular one is the one by Charles Perrault, and largely considered a French fairy tale. And then there's some theories, like was it based on a real serial killer in France around the time of Joan of Arc is one of the main theories about where that character came from. Anyway, we don't go into that in the book, but having written Gilded and Cursed, which were based in Germany, based on Rumpelstiltskin, a German fairy tale, I wanted to do this French fairy tale and then kind of do my spin on France and its folklore.
What was your research process like for these French mythological creatures and characters?
I mean, lots of deep dives into Wikipedia black holes. You know, you start by looking up French monsters or French folklore, and then you follow those little further reading links at the bottom, and you end up all sorts of places. And then when I discover a monster that I really like, then I'll try to find other sources and see what else I can learn about it. And then I also had the wonderful pleasure of actually getting to go to France when I was working on this book and visited a number of castles, and that was where I really fell in love with the salamanders, which are... Like back in the day, a lot of the kings and the royalty in France would use this fire-breathing salamander as their like symbol, kind of like a tiny dragon. And I loved that because I do not in any way think of salamanders as like a noble creature. Like they're slimy, they're weird looking, they have these buggy eyes. But I just thought it was so charming that everyone was like, you shall represent me.
It's like the gecko. Exactly. So just put a little crown on him.
Right.
That's royalty.
Yeah.
Was that the most surprising thing you found in your research?
I mean, into the monsters, the murderous horse was one of my big surprise monsters. I don't know. I think the most surprising thing of all my research was that about the serial killers in France. And a lot of times we think of them as a more modern thing. And then when you realize like, oh, there was also this horrible, horrible person who did horrible things 400 years ago, it always is like, humans, they're terrible.
They kind of are. It's fine. That's what
it's
good
fine.
Story. Makes for a great story. Yeah. So for this book, for anybody who hasn't already seen it out and about on their store shelves or on social media, what is this story about?
The Fairy Tale of Bluebeard is about a girl who marries a very wealthy aristocrat and later comes to discover that he has murdered all of his former wives, and he tries to kill her too, but at the last minute she is rescued by her brothers. The House Saphir takes place 100 years after those events, and the ghost of Bluebeard has returned, and he is haunting his ancestral home. And his great-great-grandson, who is a very handsome count, would do anything to get rid of him. And so he hires a pair of witches to come out to the house and to exorcise this ghost. And they agree to it, these witches, but they're not actually witches. They are con artists, and they have no idea what they are doing. So that causes some trouble. Another complication is that Mallory, our protagonist, starts to have feelings for this very handsome count who has asked her to do this impossible thing, while at the same time beginning to suspect that he might actually be a murderer himself.
Dun, dun,
Yes,
dun.
exactly.
This book has such a great first sentence. What makes a great start of a book for you?
Thank you. It's great when you sit down to write and that first sentence comes to you and you're like, oh, that's like plot and voice and charm all in one. And I wish every book could just do that automatically. This was one of those rare books where when I sat down to start writing that first draft, that first sentence just popped into my head and I could hear Mallory's voice really clearly. And so I don't think that first sentence changed at all over the course of revisions, which again, highly unusual. Usually that first chapter goes through all sorts of changes. But yeah, a first sentence, an opening, I mean, it carries a lot of responsibility. There's a lot that you're asking these first pages to do, introduce the world and the characters and set the overall vibe, etc., etc. So yeah, but I was pretty happy with that one.
It's a good one.
Thank you.
And you have a really great rule for interacting with ghosts. It's like rule number 1 is don't interact with the ghost when there are human people around. So talk a little bit about crafting the rules of your magic system and your magics for this book.
Always a challenge. And I wish that I was one of those writers that could figure it all out in advance, but I'm not. A lot of it kind of comes to me as I am working on the story, as I am figuring out the plot, as I'm getting to know the characters, and then you learn little things about what powers the characters have, and then you have to ask, like, okay, well, how far does that power go? Are there any restrictions on that power? In this book, there's a lot to do with ghosts and what can ghosts do, how much can they interact with the world, and that took a lot of exploration and a lot of tweaking to feel like I got it right. And then getting into witchcraft and seances and magic spells and all of this, kind of just a lot of exploring and then figuring out, okay, I need this thing to happen in the plot. So how is that going to happen? And then how am I going to lay the groundwork building up to it?
One of the ghosts in this story just cracked me up every single time. And I bet you can guess who it is.
Trifon. She's one of my favorite characters.
Oh, is that how you say it?
I say Trifon. Again, not a French speaker, but I was told.
It's like Stephanie, but with it, I was like, Tiffany.
Yeah, I know. You know what? It might be. It might be. I should probably try to find someone that could really clarify. Or at least I should talk to Rebecca Soler, the narrator, and find out, how did you end up saying it?
That's, I probably should have listened to the audiobook on that one, but oh well. So talk a little bit about crafting the ghosts as characters and like what they can and cannot do and how they interact with a human world.
Yeah. So Trifon also, I just adored her. She wasn't originally supposed to continue through the book. Originally, she was only going to be in those opening chapters. But then I just fell in love with her so much that I was like, okay, now I need to mess with the whole magic system to figure out how I can bring her along in the story. So I wanted the ghosts of the murdered wives from the Bluebeard fairy tale. I wanted them to play a part and maybe get a little bit of revenge themselves by the end of the story. And so then I knew that we were going to have these 3 wives hanging around in this haunted mansion. And then it was just a matter of deciding, okay, well, how am I going to make sure that each of these characters is distinct from each other? You know, whenever you have characters that kind of come in a group, there's a temptation to make them all really similar so that readers don't get confused, but it's so much more fun and interesting when they're all really unique from each other. And so I played around with a few different archetypes, and ended up, Trifon is the funny one, but she doesn't really mean to be. a whiner. She doesn't have a filter. She says anything, and she's sort of a hypochondriac. So even though she's a ghost, she's like constantly thinks she's getting sick. And then we've got Lucien, again, pronunciations. We're guessing here. And she's a lush. She likes her wine, and so she just kind of swans around the house. She's very much a drama queen and is always up for a party, always up for a good time. And then, I'm drawing a blank on my third wife. Hold on. Yeah.
I forgot the third wife too.
No, she's the quiet one. She's the one that just kind of want to hide. Yeah, I know. She wants to hide in the shadows. She's very, very shy. But I also thought of her as like my artistic soul. She loves music and has more of that kind of angstiness to her that you might think of more of a traditional ghost.
There's a word that I noticed used repeatedly in this, and it made me giggle, and that is hogwash.
Hogwash.
Is that part of your normal vernacular, or is that something that you put in there just specifically for the character?
That's so funny. I do say hogwash sometimes. Yeah, it's a great word.
It's a fun word.
Yeah.
I love noticing like little things when I'm like, is that a character or a choice, or is that personality seeping through?
And I think generally it's a little mix of both. Different parts of my personality will come out in different ways in different books. So in this book, once Mallory's voice came to me and it was so clear, I decided really early on that I didn't want this book to be written like a historical fiction novel. It is historical fantasy fiction in some ways, very much inspired by early French folklore and culture, etc. But I wanted the voice to feel very fun and contemporary and snarky. So there were certainly some points in the story where I was like, that's not accurate by what they should be saying for this time period, but I'm going with it because that captures the voice that I want to capture.
Personality goes along with my next question. There's a line that says, like, don't ruin it by being yourself.
Is that when Mallory's like, embroider that on a pillow? Yes. Yeah.
How do you ruin things by being yourself?
Ooh. Oh, gosh. I am a planner. And I do not like it when plans change. I can get very set in like, I have spent a lot of time and a lot of energy deciding this is what we're doing today and this is how it's going to go. But I have kids and I have a husband and they all, sometimes they're like, but no, let's go do this thing. And I'm getting better at it. I'm working on getting better at it. But it is like, it takes true effort for me to be like, okay, new plan. Let's go for it. Yeah, I struggle with that.
Like that. Like going to events like this, my husband will be here later today, and he has spreadsheets that I give him. And I'm like, these are all the things happening, and this is the order I want to do. And when you go get this ticket, these are the preferences. And he's just like, maybe I should just go to the signing lines. Okay. He's not aggressive enough for y'all.
Yeah. No, it's a lot happening. Gotta get some elbows going.
So with this book, and a little bit into The Escape Game, which is another book you have coming up, there is mystery elements to it. So talk a little bit about your process in plotting out a mystery.
Oh, gosh. Well, very different processes between the two books. The House Saphir, there is a murder mystery element, but I don't think of it as a murder mystery book. It doesn't have a lot of the common tropes, red herrings and various clues that we think of. So for this book, it was really just a matter of knowing the truth, knowing what happened in this murder, and then just trying to hide it from the reader as much as possible, while still hoping that at the end they're like, okay, I wasn't sure, but that makes sense, and I get it. With The Escape Game, which is much more of a traditional murder mystery, it was so hard. And my co-writer Tamara and I, we worked really, really hard. We had many timelines written out of exactly where each character was when the murder happened, and what happened to the phone, and what happened to this, and why did forensics get it wrong, and what did the police discover, and what can our characters now discover. And it's a giant puzzle piece, and trying to drop in the hints so that later readers would be like, oh, I should have picked up on that, but I didn't even notice. Like, it's really tricky. And hard, especially when you're writing a murder mystery, because once you are 3, 4, 5 drafts into it, every time you come across one of your little clues, it feels like it's been underlined and highlighted and like, here's a clue. And so you totally lose sight of whether or not you're being way too obvious or whether you're hiding it too much. It was hard. Probably the hardest book I've written to date.
That's interesting. It's a different way to think of it, especially when, for the escape game, they're doing an escape room. Mm. So then you have mystery with another level of mystery.
And puzzles and codes and ciphers and oh my gosh.
Did it break your brain?
So much. No, Tamara and I both. And I've told her, because I had the idea for this book of doing a murder mystery set in an escape room, which then grew into an escape room competition. And when I had that idea, I was like, that would be amazing. I love this concept. So many things that I love. But it would be so hard to do it really, really well. And I've told Tamara, like, if she had not agreed to be like, yes, let's do this together, I would have given up. I would have been like, nope, I don't have the brain power for that. But luckily, the two of us could kind of tag team it and be like, okay, I can't do any more puzzles. You figure this one out.
What was your process like for using a co-author? Because I think this is the first time you've had a co-author.
Second. I did write the Let It Glow middle grade with Joanne Levy. But honestly, those two processes could not have been more different from each other. Let It Glow, a very cheerful, very sweet, feel-good middle grade set during the holidays, and 2 POV characters. So Joanne took one, I took the other. We back and forth. We had an outline. We had the whole book written in 2 weeks. I mean, so easy, so simple. Complete opposite from the escape game, where we had outlines and we had Excel sheets and we had Pinterest boards and, I mean, layer upon layer of, you work on this room and you work on this clue and you work on this code, and POV characters that were changing. Like, we didn't end up keeping the POV characters we started with, and it was just it was a mess of a book, but we're really, really proud of what it turned into.
The dedication on your side of things is for the people that you have dragged to go play escape games. Were any of your family and friends' escape game memories used as starting points, shall we say, for the story?
Yes, no, a lot of inspiration from real-world escape games have gone into this book. Both the themes of the escape rooms, a number of them are themes that I have done in escape rooms, but sometimes the puzzles too. I have started now that if I do an escape room and I really love one of the puzzles, I'll write it down. So I'll be like, oh, I could use that later. I really like how they did that. But it's difficult putting it into a book because you want to give readers that immersive experience where they feel trapped and they feel like they have to, solve these puzzles and be excited to watch the characters do it. But you can't actually see what's around, so it was, again, another challenging aspect of the book.
I love that Beck was homeschooled as a homeschooler.
Oh, and I'm a homeschooling mom.
I love that, because that explains it.
Yes.
You have the point of people think homeschoolers are awkward and weird. It's like, no, we just see a lot more and adapt with a lot more people than you would in just one school. Because we're with... we'd go to the grocery store. People are like, what are you doing out? I'm like, this is math class.
Exactly.
So talk a little bit about your homeschool experience. That makes me very happy.
It's the best thing and also so hard. It is my second full-time job. But I love it. More than anything, I love the lifestyle that it allows us to have. Obviously, I work from home. My husband works from home. So keeping the kids at home, we get to have just the most luxuriously lazy mornings every day. There's not that rush to, pack the lunches and pack the bags and sign the papers. We just wake up, we have our coffee. When we're ready to sit down and do school, we start by reading aloud to each other, doing some craft projects. I just really enjoy, and we just get to travel so much, also a huge, huge benefit. So I just really love it. And I love that childhood goes really, really fast, and they're growing up so quickly. And so I love that this way I can spend as much time with them as possible.
You, up until recently, had a podcast that you did, The Happy Writer, which led to a book on writing. What was it like letting that podcast go earlier this year?
Bittersweet. I loved the podcast. I loved how many new authors I met through that and connections that I formed. And now being here at Y'all Fest, like there's people that I know because I had them on the podcast. And I just loved that, getting to meet and connect with people and learning. I learned so much. Like every time I'd interview someone, they always had a different perspective or a different way of thinking about, writing or craft that I hadn't thought of. And so I picked up a lot. It was a really joyful part of my week every week. But it also took a ton of time. It was my third full-time job.
It takes so much time to do this.
And that got to be too much. And then this year was a 3-book release year for me. And so I was just looking at the schedule and looking at the book launches and the promotion, and also deadlines coming up. And I just realized that I couldn't do everything. And it really was a question of I can either give up homeschooling or I can give up the podcast. And I wasn't going to give up homeschooling.
I love that. That's super sweet. What is something you learned from interviewing all these authors that helped you in your own writing?
Oh gosh, there are a lot of really fantastic tips. Victoria Aveyard had a fantastic tip about languages and language building, and like when you're creating a fantasy culture that uses a different language, choosing which letters from the alphabet that they will not use in their language and choosing which letters from the alphabet they use a lot. And I thought that is so brilliant as a way to create names and places and all of that. I also really loved the way that Leigh Bardugo talked about characterization, and she had this great quote about sometimes you're writing and you haven't quite found the character's voice yet, but that character will say one line and you hear them in that moment. And so if you can just keep coming back to that line and feeling it out, and knowing this is them, I just need to find a way to take what I've discovered in this line and now extrapolate it to the rest of the book. That was another one that really stuck with me.
What do you have coming up beyond the escape game?
We have a special edition of Heartless coming out next year.
Because it's a big year.
It is the 10-year anniversary of Heartless. We are working on a Heartless graphic novel adaptation as well. There is I don't know if I can say that one. Working on the sequel to The Escape Game, book 2 for that series, as well as the next book in this fairy tale series. So the continuation of, not really the House Saphir. The House Saphir is a standalone, but some of those characters continue on to different fairy tales now.
Dun.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, we could just briefly mention that the Lunar Chronicles movie is happening.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
Tell us all the tea.
Yeah, so it's going to be an animated trilogy, and the first one is scheduled to come out in fall of 2028. And I have a Zoom call in like 3 days to talk about it, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear what they tell me.
It's like whenever a book is being adapted, it's like so exciting, but also so nerve-wracking.
I know. No, I really am nervous, even though all the interactions that I have had with Locksmith and their team has just been fantastic. I mean, they really seem so passionate. They really seem to get the books and the vibe and the characters. And so I feel like I'm in excellent hands. But this is also new territory for me, so I'm really nervous and just really excited to hear what's happening.
How involved are you going to be in this?
That is an excellent question, and I wish I had an answer.
TBD.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, since this is Literary Hype, the last question we always ask is, what books are you hyped about right now?
Gosh, what a great question. I recently finished Strange Gods by Alison Kimball, which was pitched to me as weird, but good weird. And I think that's a very accurate description. It was kind of like, it's a YA book, but it, to me, was like a cross between A Wrinkle in Time meets Guardians of the Galaxy. Hysterical, totally bizarre, but like so different from anything that I've ever read, and I really loved it. And now I am reading, I'm not going to know the author's name. It's called Breaking In, and it is a heist book about a girl that needs to break into Hollywood and steal the script that got stolen from her. Anyway, it's really great. I'm maybe like a third of the way into it, but loving it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking time to talk to Literary Hype.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Marissa for hanging out with me at YALLFest 2025, specifically at Fierce Friday at YALLFest 2025. It was so much fun talking to her about her books, The House Saphir, The Escape Game, her podcast, The Happy Writer, as well as the book Happy Writer. So there's so much you can dive into with Marissa Meyer. If you're interested in checking out any of these books or some of the other ones that we talked about, like Cinder, to prepare you for the movie, definitely go down into the show notes and click on those links to get yourself a copy. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Literary Hype YouTube channel if you have not done so already, which you need to do because there's so much fun stuff coming your way. You should probably be subscribed. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.